Powered by Sports Interaction, Canada Sportsbook.
Leafs fans, it is duck hunting season. What a dominant performance by the Leafs tonight.
That's not nice.
What a shooting gallery by the Leafs. It is Wabbit season this season. It is duck hunting season. Mitch Marner with 23 points. Samsonov with his second shutout in the row. And tonight's stream, Leafs fans, we have the one and only Canadian legendary broadcaster, Dan O'Toole. But before we get to all that, we're going to talk about the game. We're going to talk to Dan.
Yes.
We're going to take your questions. But before we do that, we're going to do our quick ad read. And if you think you know which way it's going to go, make your bet at sportsinteraction.com. Whether it is World Cup, hockey, football, Sports Interaction has you covered. Bet pregame, live in play, or on one of our many prop bets. Sports Interaction makes it easy to deposit and cash out and play. Join now and see all sports betting has to offer. Want to bet? Head to sportsinteraction.com/SDPN. That's sportsinteraction.com/SDPN. 19 plus. Please play responsibly. People in the chat, people listening on audio, we have our very, very special guest star. Please put your hands together for Dan O'Toole. Welcome to the podcast. Welcome.
Thanks for having me, guys. I'm just sipping from my George Bell Collector's Cup.
Ooh, I like it. Now, did the feat of technology work?
Yes.
Now that's the question.
Yes, we are live. We are live and in color. We are live and in color at the funeral of the duck season because I don't know.
Well, it's just not the three of us. Okay. That's
No.
good.
No. There's a rapidly growing crowd of people wanting to see us.
Oh, very, very happy Leafs fans. It's one of those games where you kind of knew after the start where this was headed. And we had to hear that goal song 6 times.
Yeah, Dan, I always say that,
6 times.
at some point they have to just start playing other Hall & Oates songs. Because they have some good songs. That's not even their best song. They got to play Private Eyes next time when they score. Or
The
or
fact
Man Eater.
that they never even contemplated changing the song when they even asked Austin Matthews, is yeah, I think it's time for a change. And so I'm so transfixed by this song and the fact that they still play it. Who is responsible? Have we gotten down to who is in charge of the song? Does it go all the way up to Dubas? Does it go to Shanahan?
I think it might be Shanny.
Or is it just the sound guys well, no one's told me to change it, so I just keep playing the same song?
Well, if they're listening, please, for the love of all things chocolate, change the goal song.
But so I sent out a tweet saying your goal song should not make you want your team not to score 6 goals or something like that. And someone had a good comment. They said it's psychological though, because it annoys the other team, so it gets in their head. So I'm like,
it's like
that's
sound torture.
on it.
Yeah, it's like sound torture. It's like when they put like those movies where they put you in a dark room and they blast metal music and so you can't sleep.
And the hamster dance. Right? Yeah, same thing.
Yes.
And it should pump you up. There's just not I have nothing against Hall & Oates. I can jam out to Hall & Oates all day long. It's just your song should get the crowd going.
What would you change it to, Dan?
Oh, now you put
you get a magic wand, and whatever you choose it to be, so it will be. What are you gonna pick?
Yeah, we can't do Song 2 by Blur because that's overplayed. Yeah, that one got played to death. The Gary Glitter song, yeah, it's a no bueno, mucho no bueno.
Not even not even the return to the Zombie Nation. That was the one I grew up on. That was the one I was a kid. I just oh.
Okay, so that's good. That's old school. That's
Isn't that Boston's goal song though now, or wasn't it for a while?
It might be 5 other.
It is Boston's goal song. Yes.
Okay, never mind then.
So you can't copy Boston because then you just put your head in a noose by yourself.
Oh yeah, and jump off the plane.
Original thoughts.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I worked in game ops for the Leafs for a bit, and they used to play Sweet Caroline, and then one reporter was like, "Hey, they're playing the Boston theme song," and then we stopped playing Sweet Caroline because we're like, "No, now we can't do that anymore because they're in our heads and we can't copy them at all."
I would love to go with a Canadian band or a Canadian song, but no hip song is going to get you really
Nickelback.
Pumped up. Ahead by a century? Imagine playing Ahead by a Century after a goal.
Wheat Kings swaying in the background.
I say Nickelback. Some kind of talking about Nickelback.
No.
This is how you remind
me of what I really am. There you go. I mean this is what happens when the Leafs take on the Newfoundland Growlers in an exhibition game for us to watch on live TV. There's just not much to say really hockey wise. Mitch Marner, 23 game point streak.
That's pretty impressive.
It's impressive. So I saved a tweet because like I was preparing for the show like a good podcaster would.
Yeah.
By Terry Koshan is so the last 23 game point streaks were Gretzky 7 times. Gretzky, unbelievable. Lemieux, Lafleur, Sundin, Yzerman, Coffey, Patrick Kane, Trottier, Crosby, Hull, Nichols, Marner. So it's kind of rarefied air there, isn't it?
What is the all-time record?
I think it's Gretzky, and it's like something just
Like
comical.
50?
I think it's like it's in the 50s or 60s, like something that like nobody will ever touch because it's like Gretzky's. The chat will tell me because they're very, very good with that. So
Well, that's an easy Google search. Someone's got the Google on their phone. I think someone's probably installed that app.
I think we all do, unfortunately.
But Marner, yeah, as people keep saying about this Leaf team, something feels different. Now, you guys are Leaf fans. I don't have a team. I watched the Leafs before you guys were born when they used to have the game of the week on like Global. So I watched in those days when they still played Maple Leaf Gardens. And then I was a Habs fan when I was a kid. But does something feel different about this team? Because you guys would know, you guys are embedded. What feels different, if anything?
So it felt different in the game in the last year's playoffs. It did, honestly. So when there is a joke and it's become a meme now that Sheldon Keefe is like, now they have respect in the handshake line. And I'm like, the fact that they didn't have respect in the handshake line before is kind of troubling. But that series, it was a couple of bad mistakes away from winning. Like they should have won that, but they played better. Like they didn't do anything catastrophic in that series. Like it wasn't like they blew the 3-1 lead to your vaunted Montreal Canadiens the previous year. I gotta say yes, but I feel like sometimes I feel like I'm just,
what is it? What is it? Can you put your finger on what's different, or is it just an aura? There's an aura.
Brody and Riley were both down, and they won a whole bunch of games. The Leafs haven't had save percentage that's like a consistent 920 in what, like 6+ years before they started playing with Marner and Matthews for sure, right? Like. I think the goaltending's different. Now, it remains to be seen how long that will last and if one of them does get a seriously bad injury again this season.
That's what's baffled me about this team is that the goaltending is working, because going into the season, I kept asking my Leaf fans that are friends saying, what's going on in net there, guys?
And we're like,
you got a problem.
We're like,
and as typical Leaf fans would say, don't worry about it. It's great. And then they would give me stats on Samsonov and Murray. Like, here's what they've done. Here's what they're going to do. And I'm like, okay. I'll see how it plays out. But Samsonov, you said that's back-to-back shutouts now?
Yeah.
And first off, he came to the team with a different name. It was Samsonov.
Yeah.
Now he's Samsonov.
I know.
We had about 10 different shows where we interchanged the name. And I'm like, I feel bad because I have an uncommon name. And I'm like, I'm butchering this guy's name. And I'm like, it's like when people call me Fouad. I don't know. Like people have called me that before. And it's like, I feel bad. I'm like, what is the pronunciation? So I think we found it, unless it changes again. So we don't know.
I think
he said I guess we've just all been saying it wrong the entire time.
Yeah, they said that at the beginning of the year that he wanted it pronounced Samsonov. So yeah, I mean, if he fixes it, then I'll say it that way, no problem.
And now I feel bad for Sens fans because whenever I bring up Murray to Leafs fans, they're like, well, that shows you how much he didn't like playing in Ottawa. Like, ouch.
Oh.
He was also hurt.
Listen, Ottawa's pretty great. My mug is Ottawa. So
hey, I went to school in Ottawa. I went to the Gonk. I'd live in that city in a heartbeat.
Well, speaking
of
Ottawa, this was actually, I'm going to sneak this question in because it is on my list. What do you think of Ryan Reynolds possibly buying the Senators?
Well, he doesn't have hockey buying money.
No.
Unless he sold all his companies, like sold his gin and then spent every penny buying a team. He even admitted he would have to go in with a large group of, as he said, sugar mamas or sugar daddies.
He's like Jay-Z owning 1%. Like Jay-Z owned 1%. Yeah.
Correct. And there's a lot of interest in that team. And if Ryan Reynolds, you could have that face of your ownership group, you are light years ahead of any other boring ownership group that no one knows a single owner. Unless they're 1% like Jay-Z. Jay-Z was 1% of the Nets?
The Brooklyn Nets. Yeah, he sold it because he's like, I just want to be a sports agent now. And I'm like, okay. And everyone's like, cool.
Jay-Z can do whatever he wants, but Ryan Reynolds, yes. Sign me up for that that ownership group. Give him a 1%. He's got 1% ownership money for sure.
Maybe 2.
Yeah.
And his outfit, like the Deadpool outfit is already Sense colors. So smooth transition. You know what I mean?
Branding.
Oh, you have Ryan Reynolds movie theme nights. You build that arena downtown, which would already be built if Mr. Melnick hadn't screwed up that deal. It would already be built in downtown Ottawa. And that's, well, you know how long things take to build, especially in Ontario. So you're looking at what from shovels in the ground to it opening 4 years probably.
With hope, yeah. Assuming the winters aren't awful.
I mean, Eglinton is still
There's
going.
a lot of snow in Ottawa.
Yeah, and Eglinton is still going. So if anybody's driven on Eglinton, anybody in Toronto is driven on Eglinton, it's still going. The construction,
Yeah, I when you get off there and you cross over, you're like, am I going to fall through the earth into the workspace below?
It changes every time. Like every time, it just
and that's been going on for how long?
Well, there is a meme. There was a meme that was going around. Like it had a picture of like 1904, like an archival photo from Toronto, and it was like a 1904, and it showed Eglinton Avenue, and then there were people working on it. It's like they've been working on it since 1904. That was pretty good. It was a good Toronto meme chuckle. But you mentioned Bettman, and now we're just going full NHL here because the game was the game.
Oh, but I know what you're going to bring up. You're going to bring up the moving rink boards.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. Because I thought that was one of the most fun. That was like the most. It felt like it was a Bettman parody account that said that. Like he's like, we asked the poll, we did the polling. The fans.
Who did he poll?
His pets. His pets.
He stood in the mirror, and he said, Do you like the moving boards? Are they good? And then his reflection said, yes.
Gary.
Is that if Gary Bettman had a child with Donald Trump? That impression?
I tried my best. I tried my best. It
was more Trump than Bettman.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean
No, that was a good Trump, though. You work on that. You've got a good Trump.
My whole TikTok algorithm is just impressions. So
I mean, no one's ever seen Trump and Bettman in the same room at the same time, right? So it could be like pokeroo. Who knows?
Both rich guys from New York.
I'm such a greenhorn. I asked a buddy who played in the league, and I kind of knew the answer, but I just had to confirm because when the moving rink boards first came out, people were like, isn't that distracting to the players? I'm like, I'm pretty sure they don't see it. So I asked him, I'm like, you can't see that. Can you? He's like, no, you idiot. I'm like, okay, I just wanted to make sure. They're just blank boards.
Yeah, no, I think that in the arena they are the same, but like they superimpose it. See, I didn't have a problem with them changing over like maybe you see it and it's a different company. But the ones that people hate are the ones that are actually moving during the play. Like there was one, I think it was like Enterprise Rent-A-Car.
Yeah, it was a car.
And it was like zoom when the puck was going. And I have a new TV and I wanted to put my head through the new TV. I'm like, that's it. I can't watch this anymore. But
I saw the one game, maybe it was in Edmonton or somewhere where the superimposed boards weren't working and it looked like the players were playing in a simulation.
It was like a PS2 game and they were glitching.
That was the only time where it took me out of the game. I could care less. And I know why Gary Bettman says they're working because it's more ad dollars because they're selling more advertising. So of course he loves them. It makes the owners money. It makes the league money. So it's a typical Gary answer. If it's something Gary likes, he's never going to say anything negative about it, just like the Arizona Coyotes. They will never, ever leave there because they're his baby. And if they fail, then he admits he failed.
Oh, he will never he's like.
So if they pulled those rink boards, he's like, I admit I failed. Nope, they're perfect. I pulled everyone I know. They love them.
He went full Charlton Heston. You can pull it from my cold, dead hands with the Arizona Coyotes. Absolutely.
That's a good
one.
I'm
surprised someone asked him about them, though. Like, if you're reporting, you're down at the owners' meetings, and you ask Gary that question. I didn't know it was that big of a hot topic to ask the guy in charge of the league.
It was going around for a bit. It was going around the hockey Twitter sphere for a while.
Yeah, I thought it died down. Here's my beef. I mentioned this on my podcast, Boomsies, on Monday.
Great show, by the way. Listen to it.
NHL owners, why do they meet where they don't have an NHL team? Because if I was an owner, I'd say, hey, let's we've got media, we've got all the owners, they've got their assistants, they've got their teams. You're looking at 200 hotel rooms. That's 200 meals 3 times a day. Why not tour around so an owner can show off his city? Why do you go to a place you don't have an NHL team? I would be so annoyed if I lived in a city that had an NHL team and you're like, why are you guys down there? You don't even have a team. Why are you giving them the money there?
Maybe it's
That's
so they're
my
not,
beef.
Maybe it's so they're not recognized.
Also
Right?
golf.
If you come to Toronto, people are gonna find out, right? If you go to Boston, people are gonna find out. Yeah, you could probably
Who's
go to
going to talk to the owners? They don't care. People don't care.
punks like us. That's who, Dan. Punks like us.
Some Leaf fans would
You guys
be
all
like,
swarming the owners. What about the records?
With my
Tell us
phone.
more. Yeah.
yeah, he just like people will recognize the owner. They're like, you own the Carolina Hurricanes, don't you? Yeah. No, I'm guessing it's just for the golf and the the country club.
Oh yeah, they don't want to experience winter during winter, so they go where it's warm and they can golf and hang out by the pool with their cocktails. I get it. I mean,
billionaires
they
just
can
like
do
us.
whatever they want. I guess why not give back to the cities in which you have teams?
Easy with that ask, Dan. Okay.
I know.
You know the social. You know better than both of us the social leeches that are some of the owners of the NHL teams and how inept they are in social situations, right? Like I don't need to tell you.
Oh yeah, if I took over Gary Bettman's job, that'd be my first rule, and then all the owners would hate me.
But it would be
Screw
awesome.
this guy.
It would be awesome.
We're in Winnipeg in December. Screw you, Dan O'Toole, commissioner.
Yeah.
And then you do like the Homer sucking through the sinkhole with the double fingers,
The
just
middle
slipping
fingers,
yeah.
away.
Exactly. Sorry, I'm trying to make your league better, you doofuses.
So you mentioned earlier that we just had this big reveal that you grew up a Montreal Canadiens fan. Now, I have to ask because obviously you grew up in Ontario, but aside from the winning and the happiness, why the Montreal Canadiens?
Because you could get Hockey Night in Canada games, and it was either the Leafs or the Habs, and I would watch the French Habs feed, and I fell in love with Steve Penny, who was there before Patrick Roy. Steve Penny gave way to Patrick Roy, and I was a goalie growing up. And Steve Penny, I was just enamored with him. Stood on his head one series against Boston, and they threw pennies on the ice. The headline was "Pennies from Heaven." So I fell in love with the team then, and then Patrick Roy took over, and I was the biggest Patrick Roy fan until I met him in person in my adult life. And sometimes you don't meet your heroes. You shouldn't meet your heroes.
I've heard that.
So when they traded Patrick Roy, I just became a free agent. And you know what? Not having a team in which you're invested in is so less stressful.
I would imagine
It's
so.
so less stressful. I did some post-game shows with Knuckles Nyland. Actually, I'm wearing Canadians great Chris Nyland when they had their big Stanley Cup run. I did post-game shows. I got into it, but I didn't really care if they won or lost. So it was great. But knowing the stress that you guys put into these games, and if your team exits in the first round, I don't know if you guys know a team that does that a lot, but it must take years off your life. I can't do that. So I refuse to. I've got one team that I live and die with. That's the Toronto Blue Jays. And I don't even do it that much as I used to as when I was a kid. My love for the Jays didn't die, but it's mellowed out.
Yeah, I mean, yes. So yes, we have had a lot of years taken off of our lives with these first round series. But I think with Leafs fandom, it's become so much like all the first round losses have just kind of jaded us so much that it's just kind of like we're like, oh, this is how it's gonna go. Like that, they're gonna do it. So it's almost like we're, it's a coping mechanism in a sense. Like we're like, yeah, this is how it's gonna go. They're gonna blow the lead. They're gonna blow the lead. It's done. 7-0. They're gonna lose.
Here's my philosophy about you Leaf fans. You guys tell me if I'm way off or maybe I'm onto something. I think subconsciously you guys kind of like it. That this is your thing. This is your thing, that your team never wins the cup and you've got this streak, and you guys, this kind of gives you guys life because it gives you anger, it gives you joy. If they just won a cup, then you'd be like, well, what now?
For me, I think it's just like it's certainly not to be clear, it is not a healthy relationship. I don't think I'm as jaded as Fouad is. Like, even though I've been a Leafs fan maybe a couple years longer, I'm dumb enough to keep coming back because that's what they do and they suck me in. And I'm of course disappointed when they get kicked out, but the reality is I remember when the Blue Jays won. It's one of the earliest memories that I have is the Blue Jays winning the World Series. And all I remember is my mom and dad picking me up and my whole family screaming, and it was awesome. And when the Raptors won, it was exciting, but I'm not a huge basketball fan, but I've been a Leafs fan my whole life. And I'm just waiting. I'm waiting. And I think maybe part of it is like my dad, for most of my life has been like, don't be a Leafs fan because they'll break your heart every time. And he's not, and he's right? They not have. Wrong. He's been right so far. And maybe part of it for me is like, I can't wait to prove my dad wrong and be like, see, Dad, they are going to win again in your lifetime.
That's like my, so when I was growing up, and still now, whenever I see him, my uncle Jabra, every time he would see me, he would say, Fouad, the Leaves are shit. Okay? Don't watch them. Why you? And he'd say it grammatically correctly. He'd say, the Leaves are shit. And he still says it. And he's been saying it since I was 10, which is the last time.
I like this guy.
Yeah, I have to shout him out. So so every time I would see him, so I want to one day be like, see, they might not be shit.
But getting back to my analogy, if they do win, say they win this year, then you guys are going to go into the next season like, now what? Because after you win a cup, you've got like a 10-year buffer where you don't have to do anything.
It'll just be nice to be able to rebut the 67 jokes.
Yeah.
I think it, I mean, you look at it with the Raptors, right? Like for me, I'm a huge Raptors fan. So when they won, I just sat there for a second and I'm like, whatever they do for the rest of my life, I don't care. Like, they're even fine. They were saying Kawhi's going to leave, Masai's going to leave, the team's going to move to Honolulu. And I'm like, I don't care. They won. Yeah. The thing happened. It was, so yeah, you might be onto something there.
And the Jays got their back-to-back World Series, so that gave them, 30 years. Oh, yeah, it's been 30 years.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Oh, right. So maybe they've now reached the end of their window of, okay, guys, you kind of need to win again.
I mean,
like you said, Raptors fans and the Raptors franchise, they're good for 10 years. They don't have to do anything. Just show up the odd game, make the playoffs, and hey, you won a championship.
Yeah. I mean, hey, I think that's a good problem to have. But you might be onto something with the masochism, because I remember at the beginning of the season, last time they played the Ducks, was the game where like it was a 10 alarm fire. I don't think a 10 alarm fire exists, but everybody was like, fire the entire city and to fire everybody. The franchise, move the team, everything. It was terrible. And we had one of our streams. So our other two hosts, Harnish and Armand, had a stream, and it did the record number of streams we have ever done. It was,
what happened in this Ducks game?
They blew a 3-0 lead and lost
3-1 lead. Yeah, and Mitch Marner had a tantrum and like was angry, and everyone's like, "See, trade Marner." And now it's like an alternate universe now where he's like the second coming of Doug Gilmour. So, yeah. So all that to say is, Leafs, there is a certain enjoyment that comes from saying, "Hey, look at these losers over here," and And you come up with your own ways how to fix the team. You always have something to talk about. But if they just win, then you're like, how's the weather?
If they win this year, we have to talk about if Austin Matthews is going to win now that they've won. That's what the narrative will be. That's what it'll be. Now that he's won, he's going to go back home to Arizona.
Of course. That speculation's always going to be there. Austin Matthews. That's what Gary Bettman, that's his dream, to have Austin Matthews in Arizona because he'll sell tickets. They just need to build an arena.
I think I just threw up in my mouth a little bit.
It's 4D chess there. Yeah. So we have a few questions. So I want to talk a bit about what you've been doing here. So with your show, you have your show now, Boomsies, which you can find on all the podcasting platforms.
Wherever you listen.
Wherever you listen to your podcasts. So I wanted to ask, so you started off, your career with the traditional studio shows, with T10 and FS1, and now you're doing podcasting where it's kind of just your vision and your baby.
Mhm.
What's that transition been like? And like, what's the adjustment been like going from something completely different to
From a
another thing?
tie to a hoodie.
Exactly.
At first, I didn't know what I was going to do when I got laid off, fired, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
People say I got laid off. I said, either way, you end up without a job. So I'm like, well, let's not
Yeah.
split hairs.
It's
here.
semantics. Yeah. Semantics.
So I thought it was ingrained in me. You need to be on TV. You can't miss work. You got to be there. We did our show live at midnight every night. So meaning I wouldn't get home till around 2:00. When Jay and I first started, we did our show live at 2 a.m. So I wouldn't get home till like 4 a.m. So you're a walking zombie when you've got kids and a family.
Yeah.
So, but that you just get used to it. So the best part of all this is my commute is walking down the stairs down to my basement to do this. And I can tape it whenever I want on a Monday or Tuesday. And I get to do what I want. That's what you said. That's the big takeaway for me is I get to talk about, I get to have on whoever I want. I get at my old job, I was told, sit here, do this, and don't question it.
Here's what you're talking about, just so you know.
You need to be finished. You start at this time exactly. You finish at this time exactly, and then get the hell out of here. And then try to live a normal life while you're going on no sleep. So the fact that I don't have to do that and I feel like a normal human going to bed, like this is around my bedtime. This is usually when I'm lying in bed, searching Twitter, seeing what's going on, seeing what Elon Musk is up to. And then I have I'm asleep before I've got 3 hours sleep before I even would have got home in my previous life. So that's my favorite thing about it. And Jay and I did a podcast. We actually started one before every single human had a podcast. So we started in like 2009. And
Yeah, wow.
I remember when we first went to the bosses with it, we did an hour podcast where we just shot the shit. They're like, yeah, I think it needs to be 5 minutes. Like, what? Like, you haven't even backed out of the driveway. They're like, yeah, 5 minutes. We're like, but we are going to do this. And they're like, whatever. And then we went and we did that for up until what? When I left there in 2020, 2021, 2021. So we did that for 11, 12 years. So I've been able to kind of have a built-in audience come over to, it's kind of like when a show reaches the end of the line and then a character from the show gets a new show. So you're like, okay, just a continuation
Like
of
Joey.
that character. Yeah, exactly. That show didn't work. Hopefully this show lasts longer than Joey.
It will last longer than Joey.
Joey lasted, what, a year or two?
A season.
Probably.
It was one season.
If that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was the wrong one to give one to, but go on.
You're going to
who
be,
would you,
Dan, you're
who
going to be
would you
like
given
Doctor
one
Who.
to?
Yeah, I guess you're right.
I don't know anything about Doctor Who. Is that a good thing?
Yeah, it's been on this TV for like 60 years, so I hope you don't have plans.
Perfect. I want to die in this basement. I want to die on Boomsies.
You would get the views, man. You would get the views, I promise.
Yeah. Oh, I can have a cliffhanger before everyone. Does Dan die this episode?
Credits
I
roll.
know.
Tune in. Yeah, you have to have one of those like scenes where it's like next time on Boomsies, and it's like everyone's like, oh my god, Dan, and then that's how it goes, and then.
Well, we have one character that may have died already on the show, and that's my cat. He's missing since June. So,
Oh, gosh.
Ron. But everyone, here's the interaction that people have. They send me emails whenever they see a news story. Oh, dog returns home after 6 months away. Cat returns home after a year. So they give me hope. And it's a nice little community where, I talk about finding sobriety since I left my job, and that you don't have to drink a bathtub full of wine every day. Who knew? I didn't know these things. I became an adult in my new life.
Well, and congratulations on that. Like, sobriety,
thank you.
sobriety is
Absolutely.
a huge deal. And
Everyone, people come to hear that, and they have a place where they say, hey, it worked for this guy. Maybe I'm going to try it. And my goal was, I thought I'd sit and never talk about it, but I revealed it, and I get a couple emails a week from people saying, hey, I'm giving it a shot. So it's great. It's good knowing that you're able to help others instead of just wallow in pity after losing your job. So I could have gone one way. I went the other. Thank God.
That's
Thank God.
good.
I would have been
Absolutely.
sitting in this basement just in darkness. That's another podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah, Dan
Just
in
sitting-
darkness.
This one
Sitting
has
in a
better
corner.
lighting. This one has better lighting for
Yes.
sure.
Yeah, I got one of those big ring lights.
Yes.
Ring lights do wonders.
Nice.
That's why I'm not wearing my glasses, because they just whenever I wear
into
them,
high
it's like this. Like you just see, that's all people can see. So I got contacts for that specific reason.
Can you get anti-glare? No, I guess the anti-glare wouldn't work on ring lights because you could still see the ring lights.
I'm gonna wear sunglasses next time and be really cool. I'll be like Bob McCown.
Yeah.
You're gonna go
Exactly.
Corey Hart and go sunglasses at night. For
And I'm
that?
gonna have
That's what
people
you're
call
gonna
in the
do?
show and then yell at them, be like, you don't know anything about hockey. Get off
Yeah.
my show, like Bob
Well,
McCown.
you know what Larry David says about people that wear sunglasses inside. He said only 2 people wear sunglasses inside: blind people and douchebags. I think it's very true.
Yeah,
Very true.
that's true. Maybe like a bouncer, but maybe not.
Yeah, I always wonder when I saw a lady at the grocery store yesterday with sunglasses, and I'm like, what's going on there? I have so many questions whenever I see it. So many questions, because she wasn't doing it to be cool. She was like, I live in the sticks. So she was just doing it because something had gone wrong. Something had gone wrong somewhere.
Oh,
Dan, just so you know, we have multiple people complimenting your stash. Just so you know,
yes.
Thank you. So
you grew
I
it
get this
yourself.
question every day. Yes, I grow it myself. I get the same comment at least once a day. You know, Movember's over, right? I'm just doing it for a year. I'll have to shave it if I have to shoot a commercial here, but we don't have any on the horizon. So I've never grown a mustache, just a mustache. I've grown a beard before, so I'm like, I'm going to become a man. I'm becoming a man this winter.
I'm a real man.
You know, it's always funny, like with like when you see all these old photos, like not even that old, like even my dad's generation. Like my dad was like 21 and he had like a Freddie Mercury mustache like this,
Oh, yeah.
like, and it was everywhere. Even like back in the 50s, like you still show like guys going to war and they're 18 and they just have like these like handlebars, and I'm like, that's not who we are. That's a
Now
little bit
you
different
can't
from
have
now.
a mustache without someone commenting on it. I'm hoping that maybe
Yeah.
once I hit like the 6 month, at least people around me, they've stopped commenting. But if I see someone I haven't seen in a while, hey, what's going on with the mustache? Hey, forget your clippers. Hey, it's every line you can ever.
Just be like, I
Here,
can't stop it. No matter what I do, I just can't seem to get rid of it.
Well, it's replaced the old lines because Jay and I, we worked together since 2003. So whenever I'd see people, they're like, hey, where's Jay? So I always have that.
Oh,
So my cousin gave me some great lines. He's like, I don't know, doing tall things, like getting stuff from the top shelf,
saving cats
feeding
from
a
trees.
giraffe.
Use my favorite line. I'll give you my favorite line. It's not my turn to
For
watch
tall
him
people?
anymore. It's not my turn to watch him anymore.
Yes. Well, and then the other one is, hey, Jay. And I'm like, nah, I'm Dan. And Jay gets the same thing. He's like,
Oh,
Well,
so you guys are like a monolith, like you become like one.
yeah, and I can see that. I watch so many shows. I don't know the characters. I'm like, hey, but I don't go up to them. Hey, you're that guy.
Because maybe they aren't.
You're that. I know.
Yeah, that would.
You don't mention that, or if you think someone's pregnant. I saw that once when I was a child. One of my first ever interactions at the bank teller. I was standing there, probably making a $5 withdrawal. The guy next to me says to the teller, "Oh, so when's the baby due?" And there's silence, and she said,
What baby?
I'm not pregnant. I still remember that to this day.
Did everybody
if I
just
see
die
a-
of secondhand
I
embarrassment?
do not. The baby could be coming out of the woman.
The canal.
If she doesn't mention it, or if her partner doesn't mention it, I'm not saying a thing.
No,
You do not say a thing.
that's a faux pas.
I learned
That's
that
a
at an
no-no.
Rookie
early
move.
age.
Rookie
Yes.
move. Rookie move. You know, Dan, you've worked all over. You've had so many jobs. You were once the play-by-play commentator for the Ottawa 67s. You've traveled all over Canada. What town or what city were you most surprised by? Because you've been all over. What town were you most surprised by? Where you were like, how did I not know about this?
As I mentioned before, Ottawa, I love. Ottawa, I went to school there. I have cousins there. I go back whenever I can, skate the canal, visit the museums. It's just the War Museum. It's it's not like it's not a happy place, but it's very well done. The War Museum in Ottawa. I like going to any city in Canada. I've been to every province. I haven't been to the territories yet. That's the only place I haven't been. But every part of this country amazes me. And whenever I talk to people that haven't discovered Canada, I tell them, get out there, see it. You don't need to go to a beach in Mexico. Go to freaking BC, go to Manitoba, go out east. We did 3 summers in a row where we went to Eastern Canada. We took an RV the last trip. RV trips are a blast. You can have a hot dog whenever you want.
Ooh.
And then you'll never eat hot dogs for another year because you've been eating them while driving an RV. And that RV smells like hot dogs that have been microwaved. I lived in Fort McMurray for 3 years. That's a cool little town. That's a sight to see. I did the Fort McMurray Oil Barons play-by-play for 3 years. That's where I really cut my teeth in broadcasting and where I got into TV because I did radio up there. Went to the little cable station. I'm like, hey, can I do a little TV show? They're like, hey, you go shoot it. We'll help you edit it. So that's where I got into TV. If I hadn't gone up there, I wouldn't have ever got into TV, I don't think. Maybe I'd be doing play-by-play back for the Ottawa 67s. Who knows?
Or maybe the Ottawa Senators by now.
Oh, no, they've had Dean Brown there forever. No one's taken his job. He's very good at it. So he's been there since day one, I believe.
Wow.
The voice of the Ottawa Senators. Yes.
Wow. That's pretty special. My goodness.
Yeah, we
I didn't
have
know
Charlie Arsenault. He so we have game overs all over Canada. We have game overs from each team, and he hosts Game Over Ottawa. Ottawa rules confirmed. So you've made some friends in our nation's capital.
That's right. And for anyone listening in Ottawa, make sure you visit my my cousin's hockey shop in the Sensplex where the Sens practice. Hobbins Hockey Shop.
Oh,
Ooh, shout out Hobbins Hockey Shop.
And I believe
SpawnCon.
when you get your skate sharpened there, you get a hockey card.
Oh,
He buys old packs of hockey cards, so you'll get like a Peter Sidorkowitz or
wow.
whoever.
A Nick Antropov. I don't know.
A Nick Antropov, a Radek Bonk card.
Oh, cool. That's a name.
Who Radek Bonk, by the way, is at the rink all the time because his kids play hockey there. So
Really?
you can run into Sens legends while getting your skate sharpened at the Hobbins Hockey Shop at the Sensplex.
There you go. I didn't think this is where it was going to go, where we were plugging the Sensplex, but this is why we had you on, because we need the unpredictability on a show.
That's right. And you need to know where to get your skate sharpened in Ottawa.
If you want to skate the Rideau Canal, you know.
That's right.
Yeah. So you mentioned the journey with your sobriety, and and you've mentioned a lot about mental health on your show. Is that something that you are interested in, like, pursuing, more with your content or even more with organizations?
Oh, I talk about it all the time. I cry. I cried today on the podcast taping it. I'm very open with my emotions. I'm a crier. Like that Sidney Crosby, Crosby, Tim Hortons commercial where it cuts to him. If I could do anything for the rest of my life, I'd love to play hockey. I bawl. I watch it once a year. My kids sit and watch me bawling during this. Oh God. But mental health. Yeah. You know what? Growing up, no one ever talked about it. Mental health. I don't think I heard the word mental health until I was probably in my 30s. That's how,
especially
that's how
for
in
men.
the dark.
Especially for men.
So in the recovery community, I found the best solution. If you're having a bad day or something, pick up the phone. Because so many people just sink into a dark hole and they're like, oh, no one wants to hear my problems. Guess what? You don't have to deliver your problems to people. Just picking up the phone to talk to someone, then it changes your whole outlook. You to hear about their day, or you start joking around, or whatever. Just pick up the phone. That's 99% of things can be solved that easily by picking up the phone. And if you don't have anyone to call, look into your recovery community. They're amazing. And the best thing about the recovery community, no one wants anything from you. They aren't trying to sell you anything. They want you to succeed. That's it. I keep looking into the other camera. I realize this camera's on. Sorry.
It's okay.
I look down all the time. I'm like, I should be looking at the
I've
camera.
got this camera and it's not hooked up. So I you must think I'm like on another show or something.
It looks like you're talking right to me, actually.
So
he's
pick up the
doubled.
phone. That is my biggest mental health tip. The easiest takeaway is call friends, call family. And if you don't have those people, Google search people in your community you can talk to. And it's that easy. It's something I wish I knew about a long time ago, and that it's okay to talk about your feelings. And a lot of people are discovering that now, especially professional hockey players. I've got some friends,
Yes.
and they're like, yeah, 10 years ago, I couldn't have gone into the trainer's room and said, hey, I don't know what's going on. I'm not myself. They'd say, what the hell are you talking about? Be a man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's gotten a lot better. It's gotten much better than it was 10 years ago.
For sure. And someone said to me, I've lost a couple of people just over the years, as everybody has, right?
Yep.
And someone said something to me a couple years ago, and it's really stuck with me, that someone would rather hear from you after a long time than hear about you.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
And even if
Yeah.
it's been a long time, even if you haven't talked to somebody in a long time, you know, sometimes you just need to pick up the phone, like you said, just pick up the phone, because they would rather hear from you and hear what's going on, even if it's a hard thing, than to hear about you later on and know that they didn't call you, right?
Yeah. I hadn't talked to a buddy in 2 months, and we started texting the other night. He called. And make sure you pick up the phone when your phone rings. Don't look and say, oh, I'll call them back, because you won't. Just pick up the phone. It's very easy. And discovered that he was diagnosed with colon cancer like a year ago. He just went
Wow.
for his final test last week. It's all gone.
Wow.
It's all gone. And I texted the next day. I'm like, you don't know how happy that made me feel.
Wow.
Congratulations.
You have
for
this
him.
great news. And yeah, he was having some tough times, and he would always pick up the phone and call. And you don't have to dive into, hey, I'm having a tough day. Just talk to people.
Yeah.
And then it gets your mind off things. And yeah, so you never know what you're going to discover on the other line when you pick up the phone. You're going to discover great news like that.
Or you end up talking to one of us.
Yeah, exactly. Answering a direct message. Sure, I'll come on this show. Why not?
Oh, thank you. Well, yeah, I mean, that's it's really good to hear that, you know, you to your point, you've seen that like across the hockey media, across, you know, players, and starting to talk about it. So I think it's a really important step, you know, especially for us gentlemen who are not taught to
sure.
say, hey, you know, I don't feel so good, and you're like
100%. Like I had a friend of mine,
so.
Connor Ingram, goalie for the Coyotes, and I can tell the story because he openly talked about it on the podcast. I didn't ask him about it, but he entered the league's I don't know
assistance
what they call
program, I think, right?
assistance program. Yeah. And he talked about how he entered it. One day he went to the trainer's room and he was going to quit hockey. He's like, I can't do this.
Wow.
I don't know what's going on. And they said, and the trainer said, we're going to get you help. Don't worry. We're going to help you. So the fact that he had enough courage to go in there and say, I need help. I had never heard of a player doing that, and of the team accepting that challenge with open arms, saying, hey, we're not going to throw you to the curb. We're going to get you that help. And 9 months later, to the day that he entered the program, he made his first NHL start with the Predators. So it was pretty cool.
Go.
And now he's doing great. And to your point, Dan, you know, people don't talk about it enough. And it's good to see that now the times, they are changing. And even though the change continues to be slow across hockey, across all sports, for so many things, it does seem now that, at least in regards to mental health and how things are going these days, that it is improving and people are getting the support they need. And please, everybody, like, if you have any problems, please reach out. I'm on Twitter, even if I don't know you, you know?
Yeah, send me a message. I get a lot of direct messages on Instagram and Twitter, and I respond to all of them with people saying, hey, I'm on day one of trying this out, and I encourage them. I say it's the best decision you'll ever make. I just worry about the effect that social media has on our kids, because I watch my 11-year-old and she'll stare at that TikTok for hours at a time. And I'm like,
doom scrolling.
What is going on in your brain? I can't even sit in the same room and hear it, let alone watch it. So
yeah,
it's the fact that these devices, I take it for granted. I didn't have one as a kid. My kids make fun of me. They're like, you didn't get your first cell phone till you're in your 20s. I'm like, yeah, and I kind of am thankful for that. You weren't tied to a device. You had to show up when you got off the phone and said you were going to be somewhere. You didn't know everything going on in the world. We aren't supposed to know all the information at once.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
We aren't supposed to know everything going on in the world. It's too much.
Yeah,
It's too much.
way too much. Like I always say to like I always ask my mother sometimes. I'm like, when you were growing up, like she came here in like the 80s and she went to high school here. I'm like, did you know what was going on in this X amount of country? She's like, no, I don't know. We just watched we watched Lloyd Robertson on CTV and that was it. Like that was what that was how she for 30 minutes, that was the news and that was it. Then
You would barely know something that happened in a baseball game or a hockey game. You just see the box score.
The
You
box
wouldn't
scores, yeah.
see a single thing
Scrolling.
about that game unless someone like died in the game. Like you would never know a single thing that happened. And yeah, it was better for our brains when it was like that. It was better mentally that we didn't have so much going on, so much constant noise.
Well, you're right, but on the other hand, the if we can flip side that before we sign off here in the last few minutes, the other side of it is that there is instant access to support if you need it. If you don't want to talk to anybody on the phone, you can chat to people. There are systems set up so that you can talk to somebody. They don't have to hear the shakiness in your voice. They don't have to hear you cry. There are resources and people like you, Dan, that are brave enough to come out and say, hey, I have this problem, but I'm going to get help for it. People like Justin Bourne, who came out just last week and said the same thing, that he was having a problem with it. Like 20 years ago, those guys were just like, oh no, he just had a couple too many. And it was always a problem. And now we're talking about it. And now now we can say, hey, I have a problem. And it doesn't end somebody's career. And that's, and there is good things. And so, I'm glad that we got to have you on the show tonight. And I'm glad that we got to talk about hard things because it's a hockey podcast, but we're all people too. Right. So
1,000%. And as I end each of my podcasts, I just tell people, hug someone. Hugs are good. And also just be nice. Just be nice.
Not hard.
Absolutely.
Like, you don't need to send mean comments on the internet. Like, I can watch a show, not like an actor. I can watch a show, not like someone on the show. I would never in a million years think of tweeting that person saying you're a horrible actor or this show is brutal.
Mm-hmm.
Why send that negativity out in the world? But you can't convince the haters not to be haters, I guess. They like that because they're hurting the most. So they want someone else to feel what they're feeling, and that is misery. So
hurt people, right?
Correct. 1,000%. So just be nice.
Just drown out the haters, drown out the trolls with love.
I honestly like I'm actually kind of glad that this game was like kind of a laugher because we had a chance to have this important conversation here without kind of like getting into the weeds.
I didn't get to ask you guys, is Dubas gone if they get the first round exit?
And to that's the kind of the funny point of it. Kind of to wrap it all up, that's kind of the funny point is that when the Leafs are playing well, it's like, what do we talk about anymore? Like,
I know you guys like misery.
At least the media, at least the people who are trying to get into the media. It also gives me
something to talk about because when the Leafs came back from that West Coast swing and they were not looking good, I put in my resume to become head coach of the Toronto Maple Leafs, and
you got a notification. It said it was viewed. Like the Toronto Maple Leafs viewed your resume, and they're like. Right. You're like, oh baby.
So
pending.
Now I don't get to do that anymore because they're playing well. So my dreams of becoming head coach of the Toronto Maple Leafs are dashed because your team's too good.
Well, and listen, if they go on a losing streak, you're welcome to come back. Just let us know. You have Fouad's email.
That's the thing. If you guys go on like more than a 3-game losing streak, it's the end of the world.
Oh yeah, it's like Reverend Lovejoy in The Simpsons. It's all over, people.
Yeah,
we don't have a prayer. But we're really honored to have you on here. The whole team was really excited. We're like,
we were all jazzed.
Awesome. Well, tell the team thank you.
Absolutely.
And before we go, I need just to validate our Leaf fans, our Leaf fan souls. What's your prediction for the Leafs here? Is this the year, and not the year to win the cup, the year to get out of the first round?
You're not a Leafs fan, so you don't have any bias towards them.
I think they do make it out of the first round.
You heard it here first.
But you should have bigger goals than that.
I know.
Listen, the bar is subterranean. We just want to hop over it. That's all we're trying to do.
Because then you guys, you get into a whole other thing. If they get knocked out in the second round, you're like, oh, I know it.
Then we
I
become the
knew
Washington Capitals of the
Isn't that
mid
a-
2010s.
What a great metaphor for life, eh? It's like you get that thing that you think is gonna make you happy, and then you're like, I don't want it anymore.
I need more.
I want more. Yes. But I always
Exactly.
tell my kids, I'm like, I'll buy you this, and guess what? A week later, you want something else. It's never
You
enough.
gotta find it in
It's
here,
never
man. You
enough.
gotta find it
That's
in
right.
here. You gotta find
Unless
it.
they,
Never
unless
enough.
they win the cup, and then it's just like that. Now you have everything.
And
you
then
ever
we
wanted,
all
and that's
spray
it.
champagne in our own faces.
That's right. And then the next day, you're like, now what?
Yeah.
Well, Dan, we again thank you
you.
so much for coming on. This was an amazing episode, and thanks everybody for watching and tuning in and participating in the chat. Thanks everybody for coming out, and we'll see you for the next Leafs win. I believe that'll be on Thursday, December 15th against the New York Rangers, where the Leafs will 100% win the game.
Oh, that's easy. Rangers suck.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. And so guys, make sure you do hit like, make sure you do hit subscribe, make sure you do comment. Let us know what you like about the stream tonight, even though we didn't talk about the game a whole lot. If you have any questions for Dan and he happens to come back on, we will make sure to get those onto the next show if he does happen to grace our presence once again. To sign off, my name is Lauren. You can find me on Twitter at Lauren in the 6. Fouad, it's all
My name
you.
is Fouad. I'm sorry. I was about to get started. My name is Fouad Suleiman. You can find me at Fouad_sports on Twitter and the TikTok.
The TikTok.
Dan, where can the
And
people find you?
I'm Dan O'Toole. Dan G. O'Toole.
Dang O'Toole.
Dang.
Dang
My
O'Toole.
middle name's Gerard, so that's why I've got the G.
It's awesome.
Instagram, TikTok. Listen to Boomsies. It's fun. It's whatever. Or don't. I don't care what you do. Live your own
It's
life.
good.
I tell people, do what you want. Do what makes you happy.
And hug somebody, guys. Hug somebody.
And be nice. It doesn't cost you anything.
Nope, it's free. Thank you all for coming. Have a good night, everybody. Take care. We'll see you Thursday.
Game over! Powered by Sports.